much. There are 44 verses in this chapter. So, I will maybe devotees can raise their hands who wants to read. I will start sharing my screen. Hopefully, you can see my screen.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, the screen is visible.
Yeah. So, Nupur Mataji, you can go first. 11 verses per devotee. We will do 4 devotees reading.
Hare Krishna. Sri Shanata said, although he is unborn, the Supreme Personality of Godhead took birth as Kapila Muni by his internal potency. He descended to disseminate transcendental knowledge for the benefit of the whole human race. Shanaka continued, there is no one who knows more than the Lord himself. No one is more worshipable or more mature a yogi than he. He is therefore the master of the Vedas, and to hear about him always is the actual pleasure of the senses. Therefore, these precisely describe all the activities and pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is full of self desire and who assumes all these activities by his internal potency. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, the most powerful sage Maitreya was a friend of Vyasadeva. Being encouraged and pleased by Vidura's inquiry about transcendental knowledge, Maitreya spoke as follows. Maitreya said, when Kardaman left for forest, Lord Kapil stayed on the strand on the Bindu Sarovar to please his mother Devahuti. When Kapila, who could show her the ultimate goal of the absolute truth, was sitting leisurely before her, Devahuti remembered the words Brahma had spoken to her, and she therefore began to question Kapila as follows. Devahuti said, I am very sick of the disturbance caused by my material senses, for because of this sense disturbance, my lord, I have fallen into the abyss of ignorance. Your lordship is my only means of getting out of this darkest region of ignorance because you are my transcendental eye, which, by your mercy only, I have attained after many, many births. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original and supreme Lord of all living entities. You have arisen to disseminate the rays of the sun in order to dissipate the darkness of the ignorance of the universe. Now be pleased, my Lord, to dispel my great illusion. Due to my feeling of false ego, I have engaged by your Maya and have identified myself with the body and consequent bodily relations. Devahuti continued, I have taken shelter of your lotus feet because you are the only person of whom to take shelter. You are the axe which can cut the tree of material existence. I therefore offer my obeisances unto you, who are the greatest of all transcendentalists, and I inquire from you as to the relationship between man and woman and between spirit and matter.
Nandini Mataji and Ritesh, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Maitreya said, after hearing of his mother's uncontaminated desire for transcendental realization, the Lord thanked her within himself for her questions. And thus, his face smiling, he explained the path of the transcendentalists who are interested in self realization. The personality of Godhead answered, the yoga system which relates to the Lord and the individual soul, which is meant for the ultimate benefit of the living entity, and which causes detachment from all happiness and distress in the material world, is the highest yoga system. O most pious mother, I shall now explain unto you the ancient yoga system, which I explained formerly to the great sages. It is serviceable and practical in every way. The stage in which the consciousness of the living entity is attracted by the three modes of material nature is called conditioned life. But when that same consciousness is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is situated in the consciousness of liberation. When one is completely cleansed of the impurities of lust and greed produced from the self identification of the body as I and bodily possessions as mine, one's mind becomes purified. In that pure state, he transcends the state stage of so-called material happiness and distress. At that time, the soul can see himself to be transcendental to material existence and always self-effulgent, never fragmented, although very minute in size. In that position of self-realization, by practice of knowledge and renunciation in devotional service, one sees everything in the right perspective. He becomes indifferent to material existence, and the material influence acts less powerfully upon him. Perfection in self realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless he engages in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for that is the only auspicious path. Every learned man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest entanglement of the spirit soul. But that same attachment, when applied to the self realized devotees, opens the door of liberation. The symptoms of a sadhu are that he is tolerant, merciful, and friendly to all living entities. He has no enemies, he is peaceful, he abides by the scriptures, and all his characteristics are sublime. Such a sadhu engages in staunch devotional service to the Lord without deviation. For the sake of the Lord, he renounces all other connections, such as family relationships and friendly acquaintances within the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Vallabh Chaitanya, Prabhu.
Engaged constantly in chanting and hearing about me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sadhus, do not suffer from material miseries because they are always filled with thoughts of my pastimes and activities. O my mother, O virtuous lady, these are the qualities of great devotees who are free from all attachment. You must seek attachment to such holy men, for this counteracts the pernicious effects of material attachment. In the association of pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to ear and the heart. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and thereafter he is freed and his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begin. Thus, consciously engaged in devotional service in the association of devotees, a person gains distaste for sense gratification, both in this world and in the next, by constantly thinking about the activities of the Lord. This process of Krishna consciousness is the easiest process of mystic power. When one is actually situated on that path of devotional service, he is able to control the mind. Thus, by not engaging in the service of the modes of material nature, but by developing Krishna consciousness, knowledge and renunciation, and by practicing yoga, in which the mind is always fixed in devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one achieves my association in this very life. For I am the Supreme Personality, the Absolute Truth. On hearing this statement of the Lord, Devahuti inquired, what kind of devotional service is worth developing and practicing to help me easily and immediately attain the service of your lotus feet? The mystic yoga system, as you have explained, aims at the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is meant for completely ending material existence. Please let me know the nature of that yoga system. How many ways are there by which one can understand in truth that sublime yoga? Oh, my dear son Kapil, after all, I am a woman. It is very difficult for me to understand the absolute truth because my intelligence is not very great. But if you will kindly explain it to me, even though I am not very intelligent, I can understand it and thereby feel transcendental happiness. Sri Maitreya said, after hearing the statement of his mother, Kapil could understand her purpose and he became compassionate towards her because of being born of her body. He described the Sankhya system of philosophy, which is a combination of devotional service and mystic realization, as received by disciplic succession. Lord Kapil said, the senses are symbolic representation of the demigods, and their natural inclination is to work under the direction of the Vedic injunctions. As the senses are representatives of the demigods, so the mind is the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The mind's natural duty is to serve. When that service spirit is engaged in devotional service to the personality of Godhead without any motive, that is far better even than salvation. Bhakti, devotional service, dissolves the subtle body of the living entity without separate effort, just as fire in the stomach digests all that we eat. Very well.
Nitya Mataji, you can finish the chapter.
A pure devotee who is attached to the activities of devotional service and who always engages in the service of my lotus feet never desires to become one with me. Such a devotee who is unflinchingly engaged always glorifies my pastimes and activities. O my mother, my devotees always see the smiling face of my form with eyes like the rising sun, morning sun. They like to see my various transcendental forms, which are all benevolent, and they also talk favorably with me. Upon seeing the charming forms of the Lord, smiling and attractive, and hearing his very pleasing words, the pure devotee almost loses all other consciousness. His senses are freed from all other engagements and he becomes absorbed in devotional service. Thus, in spite of his unwillingness, he attains liberation without separate endeavor. Thus, because he is completely absorbed in thought of me, the devotee does not desire even the highest benediction obtainable in upper planetary systems, including Satyaloka. He does not desire the 8 material perfections obtained from mystic yoga, nor does he desire to be elevated to the kingdom of God. Yet, even without desiring them, the devotee enjoys, even in this life, all the offered benedictions. The Lord continued, my dear mother, devotees who receive such transcendental opulences are never bereft of them. Neither weapons nor the change of time can destroy such opulences. Because the devotees accept me as their friend, their relative, their son, preceptor, benefactor, and supreme deity, they cannot be deprived of their possessions at any time. Thus, the devotee who worships me, the all-pervading Lord of the universe, in unflinching devotional service, gives up all aspirations to be promoted to heavenly planets or to become happy in this world with wealth, children, cattle, home, or anything in relationship with the body. I take him to the other side of birth and death. The terrible fear of birth and death can never be forsaken by anyone who resorts to any shelter other than myself, for I am the Almighty Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original source of all creation, and also the Supreme Soul of all souls. It is because of my supremacy that the wind blows out of fear of me, the sun shines out of fear of me, and the Lord of clouds, Indra, sends forth showers out of fear of me. Fire burns out of fear of me, and death goes about its toll, taking its toll out of fear of me. The yogis, equipped with transcendental knowledge and renunciation and engaged in devotional service for their eternal benefit, take shelter of my lotus feet. And since I am the Lord, they are thus eligible to enter into the kingdom of Godhead without fear. Therefore, persons whose minds are fixed on the Lord engage in the intensive practice of devotional service. That is the only means for attainment of the final perfection of life. Hare Krishna.
ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatateshtarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Thank you so much, dear devotees. Thank you for the opportunity to lead the discussion today. We heard Canto 3, Chapter 24 by Nupur Mataji last week. That was very wonderful. I want to thank Jagannath Gopal Prabhu for this opportunity. I also want to offer my obeisances to His Grace Balram Shakti Prabhu, who has revealed the essence of the chapter to me through his classes. Now, if you find anything useful today, it's all because of Srila Prabhupada and Balram Shakti Prabhu. And any mistakes that I make are purely mine. Please point them out to me. And it's really difficult for me to read the Bhagavatam and try to understand it because it just takes too much effort and time. But when we have to present it to our peers, we have to make some commitment. And this makes me study the material in some more detail. And that's what really I feel enters my mind only when I really prepare for it. And the Srimad Bhagavatam is reciprocal. Ye yatha mam prapadyante. The more you work on it, the more it reveals to you. So in this chapter, as we were just reading, we saw the importance that the Lord gives to association to make any progress in the devotional path. We need like-minded, compassionate, affectionate, well-intentioned, and slightly more advanced devotees than us. But because of their loving and their meaningful relationship, we will certainly make some advancement. And that is key to any advancement. So we must really endeavor these relationships. And we are so fortunate to have this Sangha so that we can have this meeting every Tuesday. So I'll do a quick overview of the story that we have heard so far. You all know the story, but I'll do it anyway. My neighbor Suman Mataji has joined us. My sister also has joined us. So I think it'll be good. Kardama Muni is a Prajapati, and a Prajapati is translated as a progenitor. So someone who's been given the responsibility for progeny. That means to increase the population of Earth. So this is a role that Lord Brahma has given Kardama Muni. Kardama Muni did penance for 10,000 years on the banks of the river Saraswati to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Kardama Muni actually saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I would all like you to close your eyes and I'll read this paragraph. Maybe you can keep your hands in Namaste. Kardama Muni saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his eternal form, effulgent like the sun. The Lord was wearing a garland of white lotuses and water lilies. He was clad in spotless yellow silk, his lotus face fringed with dark, slick dark locks of curly hair, adorned with a crown of earrings. He held his characteristic conch and disc and mace in three of his hands and played with a white lily while smiling. His smiling captivates the heart of all devotees. He sets his lotus feet on the shoulders of Garuda. He stood in the air with a golden streak on his breast and the famous Kaustuba gem suspended from his neck. Now you can all open your eyes. So Kardama Muni, when he saw the Lord, he asked the Lord that he wants to get married to a girl of similar disposition so that she can fulfill his desires and also help him fulfill his responsibilities as a Prajapati. At the same time, Swayambhuva Manu and his wife Shatarupa had a daughter by the name Devahuti. They were looking for a suitable groom for their daughter, and they approached everything was agreed. The wedding happened. The Lord predicted that they would have 9 daughters, and then finally the Lord himself will be born to them as a son. So Kardamamuni continued his penance. Devahuti began to serve her husband with great love. She was born a princess. She was the daughter of Swayambhu Manu. She was born a princess. She was from a very wealthy family. And now she was serving her husband as any regular woman does, any regular housewife does. Devahuti served her husband for many, many years, and she became very old serving her husband. But they still both had to fulfill the prophecy of having children. Kardama Muni then used his yogic powers, and he created an aerial mansion, a mansion that could fly. He then requested Devahuti to step into the Bindu Sarovara lake. She went into the lake and she came out looking beautiful and young. He arranged for all the luxuries like food, servants in this flying mansion. And this mansion flew all over the universe. Finally, they both had 9 daughters, and then they had a son who was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that is Kapila Muni. So Devahuti asked her husband first, who will give me solace after your departure as a sannyasi? Because Kardama Muni, once he had done with having children, he was going to leave and he was going back to do penance. So Kardama Muni, in his compassion, he said that the Lord himself will appear as in her womb as Kapila Muni, and he will be the vanquisher of her problems, vanquish the knots in her heart. So Kardama Muni then left to the forest to do penance. So one very, very nice thing that Srila Prabhupada says in the purport here is, in the absence of the father, it's the duty of the grown son to take care of his mother and to serve her to the best of his ability. And it's the duty of the husband to leave home as soon as there is a grown son to take charge of his wife and family affairs. So this is a little instructive for us. Now let's look at I have a PowerPoint. I'll share that, and we can look at an overview of the chapter. I'll quickly bring it up. So a quick overview of the chapter. We did 44 verses, as you all remember. Give me a second. Yeah. And in the beginning, there's an introduction to Lord Kapila, and then in the end, around verse 7 is Mother Devahuti's questions for Lord Kapila. And here the question that she asks is about liberation. She asks, what is, I want to be liberated from all this material attachment that I have. And Kapila Muni answers these questions immediately, in a few verses. And then he gives an introduction to devotional service. We'll see some of this in more detail. He talks about why association is important with sadhus. Who are the sadhus? What are their qualities? And then after that, Mother Devahuti asks some other questions. Now she has given up the desire for liberation. Now she asks the question of what type of devotional service should she do? So there is a transformation of Devahuti right in this chapter, just in these few verses. So the association of a pure devotee has quickly transformed Mother Devahuti. But she also is very, very intelligent here. She not only asks about devotional service, she asks about other paths too. She asks about other yoga systems as well. And some of this we'll see in the following chapters. But in this chapter, Kapil Muni talks about the Sankhya philosophy and what happens in the Sankhya philosophy, and how to attain the Lord. So So some key takeaways of this chapter. I won't say takeaways, but these are like some key points that I heard in classes. Is glorifying this chapter. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, said that two sections from the Srimad Bhagavatam are critical for every devotee. One is Uddhava Gita and Kapila Sankhya Yoga, which is what we are going to do today and in the next couple of weeks. These are extremely important. And then the other thing I heard is Acharyas always quote from either the Uddhava Gita or the Kapila Sankhya or the 10th chapter. The other key thing about this chapter is, you all are familiar with the book, The Teachings of Lord Kapila. That was done by Srila Prabhupada in a series of talks at Juhu in the 70s. And he particularly talked about this chapter, the chapter 25. And Satswarup Maharaj wrote a foreword to the book, the Teachings of Lord Kapila. And in that foreword, he talks about what Sankhya is, and before I get into what Sankhya is, Srila Prabhupada also says that there are two different Kapilas. One is the Kapila Muni or Kapil Dev, who is in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the other Kapil is more contemporary. He lived in maybe a few hundred years ago, and he was a non-believer. He was an ascetic, and he also wrote a particular philosophy, which is also Sankhya philosophy. So there is some confusion in the Western, particularly in the Western world, where they take, people get mixed up. But the original, according to Srila Prabhupada and the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the most important text, is this that we are doing, the Sankhya that we are doing. And the word Sankhya means to count. And it explains the analysis of all the material elements. And Sankhya philosophy culminates in bhakti. That is what we will see in this chapter. And Satswarup Maharaj says that bhakti, being the ultimate goal, is the ultimate aspect of Sankhya. And that's what we will see even while we do this chapter. So in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2 is also called Sankhya Yoga, or I think it's referred to as Sankhya Yoga. The verse Gatasu na Gatasu nanu sochanti panditaha. In that verse itself, the Lord clearly points out to Arjuna the difference between the body and the soul. That the body never dies, and please don't lament, O Arjuna. Lord Kapil Dev, in this chapter, he goes into a lot more details. Verse 5.4 of the Bhagavad Gita also, Lord Krishna says, Sankhya Yoga Pratak Balaha Pravadanti Na Panditaha. Essentially, what he's saying is, one who thinks that Sankhya Yoga and devotional service are different is really not a Pandit, is not very smart, is what he's saying. Lord Krishna is saying. So the purpose of Sankhya Yoga is to establish a strong foundation for bhakti. So just to break things up, maybe I'll just open it up to all of you. What similarities did you feel between what we read and the Bhagavad Gita? What were some similarities or differences? What did you think? Maybe we could just, some of you can share some thoughts. Yes, Jagannath Gopal Prabhu, please.
Lord Kapila is declaring himself to be the Supreme Lord. It is very similar to Bhagavad Gita also. Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo, matta sarvam pravartate, like that.
Beautiful, beautiful, Prabhu. Yes.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Yes, go ahead, Prabhuji.
Another similarity which I see is the listener here, Mother Devuti, and in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna, both were very much self-aware. because they humbly accept that the system what you're talking about we are not able to follow. Please tell us more or describe more. Tell us another system which is easier to understand.
Beautiful, Prabhu. They both are very humble students. Yes, beautiful similarity. Any others? Any differences anybody sees? Any?
I mean, this is a silly one. It's shorter than Bhagavad Gita, much shorter.
Yes, yes. This particular chapter is, but actually, this Sankhya Yoga goes into a few chapters.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Chapter is, yeah, it's only 44 verses, and another difference that I felt was Arjuna actually took a little bit of time to accept Krishna as the teacher. Here, Mother Devhuti immediately accepts Kapila as the teacher. As soon as it starts. That was another small difference that I noticed.
If I may, I am noticing this. I don't know if Bhagavad Gita versus Krishna talks about all the elements like the wind, sunshine, clouds, the fire, everything is happening out of fear of me. I think that I never uh, came across, at least as this one. It was like a striking difference for me. Maybe implicitly Krishna mentions that he's the controller of everything, but this out of fear of me was kind of
Yes, yes, that's true. That also struck me as well. Because there also he mentioned the demigods control things, I think in the seventh chapter or somewhere, or maybe in
yes,
some other chapters.
yeah.
But here, he's
The usage of that word fear is a little more prominent in here. That's what, yeah.
yes, that's true. That's true. And yeah, Ritesh, Prabhu.
Yes, I was just thinking like in this, he was just mentioning mostly bhakti, and in Gita, we have many different paths as well. Of course, they're not recommended at this age in this time.
Yes, I probably jumped the gun a little bit. We should have done this comparison after 3 chapters, 2, 3 chapters. Maybe the next, after when you listen to the next. I haven't heard the discourses for the next chapter and the following chapter, but I believe he does Jnana Yoga in 2 chapters and then Ashtanga Yoga in 1 chapter. So yes, even here, uh, Kapila Muni does cover multiple yogas. We have only covered 1 chapter, 44 verses here, but I believe that also comes. My knowledge is very limited to this, but I was told, in a class that I was listening to, I was told that, though Mother Devahuti is convinced, she still wants to know about the other paths. She is not. So it's like almost like an instruction for us is we should be very receptive to other paths and try to understand them, because the people that we may be engaging with may be more attracted to those other paths. So we don't want to push them away. We want to know what they like to know. So that's the understanding that I heard in a class. So yeah, good point, Prabhu. Good point. If there is nothing else, we will just continue. Thank you so much for this active discussion. I really loved it. So Mother Devahuti asks Kapila, I'm very sick of this disturbance caused by my material senses. It's only giving me suffering. So she has really understood it. And she's been engaging her senses only towards her own desires. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that we have to free our senses from contamination. This doesn't mean that we have to stop our senses. We don't have to stop eating or seeing things or something like that. We have to just purify our senses. So the example that Srila Prabhupada gives, and this will come again in the verse 33, is that of a digestive fire. When we eat something, how intelligently the digestive fire burns away all the wasteful things that we eat, and it only retains the nutritious things, and it uses the nutritious things for to build our body, to rebuild our blood and our all our cells in the body. So that is the example that you have to think about as to how we can also be smart like that. If one is fortunate to get the association of a spiritual master, then one's senses get purified because one's eyes get opened to this knowledge. The spiritual master is compared to the sun that eliminates the darkness of the whole world. So Mother Devati then first asks, how can I achieve liberation? So, I mentioned this before, that's her first question. She's not talking about bhakti in the beginning. She's talking about liberation. And in response, Lord Kapila gives the path of Adhyatmic Yoga. That's the word that's used in this verse. It's not yet Sankhya Yoga. So he calls it Adhyatmic Yoga in the beginning. This is a yoga of where about the Lord and the individual soul. Kapil Dev goes directly to the root of the issue. He says once we get rid of this identification of the body as I and bodily possessions as mine, then the mind will be free of lust, anger, and greed. And he also says that Jnana, Vairagya, and Bhakti will help in the process. He describes a liberated person. The person realizes that he or she is a infinitesimal part of the Supreme Lord, and that makes the person unattached to this material contaminated life. So he's just a small piece of the Lord. So the verse in the Bhagavad Gita is, oh my God, now I'm drawing a blank. Chapter 15, maybe Jagannath Gopal Prabhu will remember, I'm just a tiny particle of the Lord.
Mamayvamsho jivalo.
Yeah, Mamai Amsha Jivaloke. Amsha, I'm just a Amsha of this. Mamai Amsha Jivaloke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha. So yes, a similar concept here. And he talks about the three paths, and he says that the bhakti is the most effective path. And now he answers the question, how does one get this bhakti? How can we get this bhakti? What is the secret? So the Lord Kapila explains that this bhakti can be achieved by the association with sadhus. And bad association is the cause for samsara, and good association is the means for liberation. So, and Srila Prabhupada describes here, there's a very powerful sentence that attachment cannot be killed, it can only be transferred. So the attachment that we have inside us, it cannot be killed. And I heard this in another discourse. Suppose somebody gives you, a gallon of seawater. And they say, here, you take this gallon of seawater and produce some sugar from it. Obviously, we all know it is not possible because seawater only contains salt and water. So there is no way of producing sugar from it. Similarly, sometimes we are told, detach from this material world, detach from this material world. That is, in this class that I heard, it said that is impossible because detachment is not possible as a human being. Attachment is the only thing that is possible. And this attachment cannot be killed. It can only be transferred. So right now, we are attached to material things. And that is the process of material consciousness. Now, if we transfer this attachment to Krishna, it becomes Krishna consciousness. We have it in our nature to get attached to something. We just have to transfer that attachment. It should, this propensity of attachment that is in us should be just utilized to better things. And what can be better than the Lord himself. So he talks about association with sadhus as the secret to bhakti. Now, how do you identify a sadhu? Lord Kapila explains that too. So he says that we have to take the sadhus association and they can destroy all our anarthas. So he describes the qualities of a sadhu. And we have to pay attention to this. This is also there in the Bhagavad Gita, but let's pay attention to this. The sadhus are very tolerant, they're very merciful, they're friendly to all beings, they're very gentle, they have no enemies, they're very straightforward, they are respectful to other devotees. And then he uses the word in the verse called sadhu bhushana.
Are you sharing that verse, Prabhu, on the screen? Because we just see the slide called overview of the
No, 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 I'm not sharing that verse. I'm not
Okay,
sharing.
okay. Sorry. Please continue.
I'm not sharing the verse.
Yeah.
I should stop sharing. I don't even need the slide. So I wish I had put this in a slide. But any thoughts on which verses in the Bhagavad Gita this is similar to? No enemies. Yeah, go ahead, Jagannath Gopal Prabhu.
Yes, Adveshta sarva bhutana maitra karuna evacha nirmamo nirahankarah sabadukha sukakshami.
Yes. So wonderful verse. One of my favorite verses in the Bhagavad Gita. So Sadhu Bhushana, he wraps up with this term called Sadhu Bhushana. So Acharyas have given multiple explanations for this Sadhu Bhushana. Some say that a sadhu should be treated like a precious commodity, like a jewel. We should really care for them and not take them for granted. And the others have also said that sadhu bhushana is like a these beautiful qualities are like jewels that are like in a garland, like a necklace around them. Some other great qualities that Lord Kapila mentions is these sadhus, they practice steady devotional service and they have exclusive devotion only to Krishna, and they have a desire to attain me, which is Krishna, attain Krishna by giving up all material actions. So that is the nature of a nice sadhu. And then he continues. How does the sadhu spend his or her time? So there he says, they take shelter of me. They take shelter of me. They recite. They recite and listen to Krishna Katha, and they only talk and they are only listening to the activities of the Lord. So they spend all their time talking and listening and discussing the activities of the Lord. So then he concludes, "O mother, when you take association with such sadhus who have no attachment, all your material association will go away. The only association that will help us, that will free us from all material association, is devotee association." So once you find a devotee, do not let them go, always associate with them. Because a devotee is freed of all contaminated material association, he is not affected by the miseries of material existence. So the example that Srila Prabhupada gives is about the cat which carries a kitten in her mouth. I think we have discussed this before. Imagine a cat is carrying a kitten in her mouth, or a cat is carrying a rat in her mouth. Now, if you go to the mind of the kitten and you compare it to the mind of the rat is scared. It knows that its death is going to come. Whereas the kitten, feels the comfort because it knows that it's in the mouth of the mother. So that's how a devotee feels. Because a devotee has completely surrendered themselves to the Lord. And hence, the devotee does not feel any misery in this world. And so the devotees who are engaged in Krishna consciousness, they don't feel material miseries. They experience them. They certainly hard, difficult things happen to them. They go through, other people see that they go through death, old age, disease, and all that. They experience them, but they don't go through the misery of them. They don't necessarily feel the misery of material existence right here, right now, right in this life. A devotee doesn't feel it if the devotee is nicely surrendered to the Lord. Now, if you take association of these devotees, Lord Kapila continues, you will also get taste for devotional service. Now, what is this thing called taste? I'd love to hear from some of you because this is a term that I've heard a lot of times in many classes, or typically I hear this in questions after the classes. I don't have taste for chanting or something like that. I hear this, and when I saw this, this mentioned here, I thought this is a great point for discussion. Maybe somebody can say what is taste, and how do you get taste for devotional service? Any of you? Or taste for chanting. How do you get taste for chanting? And what is taste? What do you feel when you have taste? Yeah, go ahead, Jagannath Gopal Prabhu, please.
So I just want to encourage all devotees to speak also. I realize that only I have been speaking, but yeah, please share your thoughts, dear devotees. Very nice question posed by Krishnan Prabhu.
Yes, go ahead, Prabhu. And also Nitya Mataji is raised right hand. Both of you can go, please.
I mean, I can chime in with whatever I feel a little. For me, taste is when I do something without extraneous effort. It comes spontaneously. So that is taste. One aspect of taste.
Wonderful, wonderful. Nitya Mataji?
Yes, Prabhu. So this verse in Bhagavad Gita, param drishtva nivartate, right? So having a higher taste, kind of transcending from the mundane, material attachments, and how do we, transgress over to that which is the higher taste. It's actually a step-by-step process. Not that, um, like one devotee asked Prabhupada, um, Prabhupada, I'm doing completely devotional service throughout the day. I'm not doing any other mundane stuff, but then still Maya is attacking me.
Mhm.
Um, so why it is, and how do we, safeguard ourselves from it, right? And so Prabhupada says it's because you have not set your purpose at a higher level. It's one thing to have a higher taste. We say that, okay, now I'm, I don't, you mentioned about, like, having a material taste, like taste for material activities, and then replacing it with, because we cannot detach, we can only attach. So, it's like unplugging and plugging into something else. We cannot just completely unplug, right? Plugging from, unplug from the material and plug into spiritual. But that only happens if we have the purpose in our mind to, constantly think that, okay, this is what I want to do. This is my purpose. and only then we can get aligned to that higher taste. And how that purpose will come is to see that vision. Param drishtva is like the having the higher vision, saying that okay, this is there is suffering all around me, but there is something beyond this, right? Seeing that vision, there's a possibility that I can there is a better place to end this misery. There is a spiritual loka. There is somewhere where um, you know um, everything will be like not in a very flux state of flux. There will be something that is eternal. There will be some eternal happiness. There is an eternal condition where I don't have to worry about what is the next mind that I'm going to set off when I'm walking, right? um, with so many things happening in this world, just plane crashes, this and that, just around the corner, we don't know what is waiting for us. So yeah, so just knowing that vision is there, that okay, there is the gold at the end of the wherever, having that vision that the gold is there, and then setting the our purpose to walk in the path so that we can reach the gold. And and we may get distractions from it, like oh, we may see some other thing that may get distracted. Oh, this is nice, oh, that is nice. But then realigning ourselves to that path, that no, 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 that is not my purpose. My purpose is to reach the gold. And then eventually when we reach the gold, right? So but what we think that we try to jump to the gold without setting our purpose and vision. That is what the disconnect is happening, is what
Very nice, Mataji.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Very nice, Mataji. And actually, you're talking about determination, which is in one class I heard that it's nishta, and then that's one of the first steps. And then also we have a vision in mind. So maybe Ritesh Prabhu, maybe you can go next, please.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all that. And now I realize, like, I have a very mundane understanding of how I was, yeah, thinking about it. So, like, I'll think as I speak. So mostly, we try to relate. Like the most common understanding of taste, how I relate is like taste of food. Right, this is the most common understanding that we have right now, which many people can relate to. Like we have a taste of food, and as the saying goes, the taste of the pudding is in having it, is in actually taking a bite of it, not that someone can explain you that this is the taste. So uh, knowing about like what taste is the knowledge aspect of probably anything, I think. And then seeing that is more like, okay, I see many people, many devotees who have acquired this knowledge, have practiced it, and have gotten the taste. And when we hear them and when we see them, those taste aspect of it gets transferred to us, and we have that hanker to actually taste it ourselves. And that's where the role of that taste comes in. It's like a hankering um, for the taste which we can see others have, because that has been transferred to us through their realizations. This is my understanding, like how can we relate the taste with what we know. Of course, uh, yeah, I'm just thinking about it. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful point, Prabhu. And I want to reiterate what Jagannath Gopal Prabhu said, because that is what Srila Prabhupada also said, that when you have taste, then you don't need to endeavor. So that's also a good point. Diksha, you can go next, please.
Yeah, so I think my view of taste is like what you prefer to do or what brings you the most enjoyment. For example, if those who say they have taste for chanting might mean that they find it to be very enjoyable and find that it comes naturally to them. And I'd say, like, to the question of how do you make somebody have taste for chanting, I actually don't think it's necessary to make somebody do that in particular. I think there are so many ways to reach the ideal, to reach God. If you don't like chanting, you can sing. If you don't like singing, you can write.
You can make art, you can speak to people, you can even give lectures or teach like my dad is doing right now. I think when it comes to taste, it's not something that you have to force yourself to do. It's something that comes naturally to you. And so no matter how much you try, maybe it won't happen. And that being said, it's not an excuse to not try. I think that's more of an excuse to try lots of different things so you know what your taste is. If you think your taste isn't chanting, that's not the same as actually trying it and seeing if you like it and actually like being consistent with it for a little bit so you can actually see if you like it or not. So yeah, in short, my opinion is that taste isn't exactly linear or just one thing that you have to make yourself do. There are a lot of options, and I think in Hinduism and Hare Krishna in particular, there are so many options to reach God and reach that ideal state. So it doesn't have to be one specific thing or one linear process.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you can find the right service for you, whatever service works for you, whatever your inclination is, everything can be used in Krishna's service. So there are before I come to you, Suman, there are two things on the chat. What is said to develop? Why is it said to develop higher taste and not higher vision, higher smell, higher auditory levels? Yes, good point. I think this. Yes, I'll let somebody else take that answer to that question. But Lekha Mataji says, for me, taste is having the internal feeling of utmost satisfaction and gratitude for the ability to do this. I wouldn't be doing anything else but this right now. Yes, when you have taste for something, then it doesn't feel like an effort at all. Like Jagannath Gopal Prabhu said, it doesn't feel like work at all. It just feels like something natural. Something's just flowing out of us, and we feel, it just, it's they call it sometimes in the US they call it like to be in a flow state is a term that you probably have heard. When I'm working, I'm in a flow state. So when I'm, if I'm chanting or if I'm singing or if I'm singing kirtan, if if I have the taste for it, then it will not even feel like effort. I won't even feel like I'm doing any work. Yes, Suman, please.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu. For me, what I understand is an inclination, natural inclination toward bhakti. Chanting, of course, is a one way of doing it, but it's a overall self-realization or inclination to realize the Almighty. If it was a mental manipulation, like I have a goal, I need to meet that goal, then everybody will do that, right? Is it a past journey that makes you develop that inclination or taste, we call it?
Got it. Got it. Yes, that's also a good point, and that there is an element of inclination, and then there's also an element of effort because God has given us this. He's given us the ability to free will, and He's given us the ability to operate. So there is an element of effort also. But I'll go back to the chapter now. Kapil Muni says that the secret formula to develop taste is to have association with devotees. So that goes back to what Ritesh Prabhu said, that once you have associated with other devotees, you will automatically get the taste. In Hindi, as they say, ruchi, that ruchi will develop in us. And we'll feel like, wow, we want to do this. And we also want, we'll also start enjoying it. So then continuing, you know, there are then Mother Devahuti then asks, she now in the last 10-15 verses, Mother Devahuti has transformed. She was originally asking for what is the path, how do I get liberated? Now she's asking, what type of bhakti should I perform? And so now, just because of her for a brief time that she was associated with Lord Kapila, she's already transformed. And so that is the power of a true devotee. And then this is the controversial part, which is what is it that I can perform as a woman? Is this practice possible for me? That some people find these type of verses very difficult to follow and to understand and to even accept. And we all know that there is no material disqualification for bhakti. Anybody and everybody can do bhakti. And that is also clearly stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Mother Devati continues that I want to attain your lotus feet. So she has actually revised her goal now. Her goal originally was liberation. Now her goal is the Lord's lotus feet. And then she continues, what is this yoga that you have just explained? Then she asks more questions. What is Jnana Yoga and what is Ashtanga Yoga? And tell me more about the bhakti that I should follow. What is the path of bhakti that I should follow? So the way they, in discourses they explain by, particularly Balram Shakti Prabhu explains this is she doesn't want bhakti just to be a sentimental choice. And so she wants to have the knowledge of the other parts of yoga as well and make a conscious choice of picking bhakti as the right path for her. And she's extremely intelligent and she wants this. But even though she's intelligent, she's telling Lord Kapila, please consider my qualification and then adjust your presentation to suit me. So this is also a nice instruction for us. If we have a student that tells us, please, make this simple for us, we would do it. But when we talk to somebody else, or when we talk to other people, sometimes, at least this I'm talking about myself, sometimes I don't put the effort to finding out where they are at this point of time. What are they, what is their understanding at this point of time? I just go and rattle off whatever I know. And here what Mother Devati is saying is, consider the qualification of the listener before you say something to them. Lord Kapila now explains Sankhya Yoga, which is the enumeration of elements, and in the rest of the chapter, he will only describe the answer to the first part of the question, which is Mother Devati's question as to what type of bhakti should I do. He will not answer the other questions. The other questions will be answered in chapter 26, 27, and 28, which we will do in the following weeks. So he says, this is a really beautiful verse, which is bhakti acts like the fire, which is the the digestive fire. So the acharyas explain that that bhakti is the only thing. This was very deep for me, by the way. I had to read this multiple times, but I think now I have a handle on it. Bhakti is the only thing that can destroy your subtle body. So now we have to think about ourselves. We have the gross body, which is our physical body that we see. Then we have a subtle body inside, which is where our our impressions are, the mind impressions and all are there in the subtle body. And then we have the soul inside. I'm simplifying it. There's it is actually the 5 layers, but let's simplify it into 3 layers. You have the gross body, you have the subtle body, and then you have the soul. So the gross body, the body that we are born with, we all know that we are going to die. So this body is perishable. The subtle body is what we carry from one life to the other life. So any samskaras that we do in this life, any activities that we do, any impressions that we form, we are going to carry it to our next life. And if we lead our life and not have any bhakti inclinations, then all the impressions that we have collected in this life, all these impressions, we will take it to our next life. We may not take, we will take all the good and the bad, any habits, anything, we'll take all of these things. Bhakti, on the other hand, since we are channeling all our senses to the Lord, this subtle body, which where the impressions are likely to get stuck, that subtle body, bhakti destroys the subtle body. Because since all the activities are done for the Lord, there is no question of forming any impressions. So no impressions are formed at all. So the subtle body is destroyed and the soul is liberated. So by doing bhakti, liberation also happens. So liberation is a side effect of bhakti. The true devotee does not even want liberation. The true devotee only wants to serve the lotus feet of the Lord. But the true devotee also gets liberation. And I hope this is clear. The gross body, which we see, that gets destroyed. The subtle body, which is inside us, which is the impressions, goes from life to life. The soul, it never dies. As Krishna has said in Bhagavad Gita, the soul is forever there. Bhakti is the only process to destroy the subtle body. I hope this was useful. And we talked about the digestive fire. So very similarly, the digestive fire, when the digestive fire, when we eat something, the digestive fire burns away all the unnecessary things, and then we excrete those things. And whatever is good in the food, whatever is nutritious, the digestive fire retains it and uses it for the body to be nourished. So the digestive fire is very discriminating. It doesn't destroy everything. It only destroys the parts that are not useful. Very similarly, bhakti does not destroy the functioning of the senses. The senses are still functioning. All the senses are functioning. But it destroys this material covering of the senses, which is why we get attached to material things. And it prevents us from going into the spiritual platform. So just as it takes time when you eat something, it takes time to digest. Similarly, bhakti also takes time to work on us to slowly destroy the subtle body inside us. So we have to be patient, and it gradually gets wiped out over time, and it's a gradual process, but it is assured. The acharyas have written it, and it's there in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we can experience it because once you start chanting, you can experience the change that you feel in yourself. So it is something that we can all do a simple experiment, and we can see how we feel after 10 days. 10 days, pick up the mala and chant one round of Hare Krishna mantra. At the end of the 10th day, see how you feel. And then you continue. If you feel better, increase the number of rounds. If you don't feel as good, you can do whatever, you can do as you please. But it is assured. Everybody has experienced it, and it is, it is guaranteed, as Lord Kapila says. So with that, we have 4 minutes left. We can just open it up for some discussion. I'm hoping this was useful. And if I made any mistakes, please do point it out. And I want to thank you again for the opportunity. Thank you so much, everybody. Hare Krishna. And any thoughts about this bhakti process? Yeah, please, Jagannath Gopal Prabhu.
So, thank you, Prabhu. Really nice presentation. One thing I liked about what you just mentioned was by practicing bhakti, the way it destroys the subtle body is that it destroys that attachment to the subtle body, uh, uh, which engages the senses in turn. So even when the subtle body gets purified, the senses could be engaged. The senses continue to be engaged. But because the subtle body is purified, the sensory engagement is is pure, it's more sublime, it's spiritual. It becomes spiritual. That was a very nice point. the subtle body being destroyed, the subtle body being purified, doesn't mean that the senses are no longer acting. So that goes back to the point of, how bhakti is a practical process. It involves the senses. It doesn't negate the sensory realities around us. It takes them and it raises them to a higher spiritual level. So that was a very nice point you made. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you so much, Prabhu. This was it was very revealing to me, because the class that I heard, he connected this to with gatasu nagatasu nanusochanti panditaha. So where he says the soul doesn't die, so you don't have to be sad because the soul is not going to die. The physical body is going to die. We don't have to be sad because we all know the physical body is going to die. Now we should be actually happy that the subtle body is going to die. So bhakti is the only way of making the subtle body die. So he was connecting these two verses. So I found it very, very, it was like an aha moment for me. I got goosebumps when I felt like I understood this. I thought I'll share this with. Hopefully, it was clear. I'm not sure. Thank
It was Prabhu, 100%. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. Ritesh, please.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu, for the session. It was really nourishing, and the way you connected, like just as fire in the stomach digests on its own, it just takes a little bit of time. It is really very thoughtful of you to come up with that. And actually, we don't need like a separate endeavor to digest the food itself. It's just a natural process of eating the food, so that effort actually is what counts. And yeah, thank you for basically revealing us this chapter very nicely. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. I didn't actually come up with anything. Every example here is from either from some class or from Srila Prabhupada's purports. So everything is copy paste. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Yes, you bring up a good point that there's no endeavor needed. Similarly, bhakti also, there is no endeavor needed. Once you start practicing it, it will gradually have its own effect. Yes, Gaurakumar Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishnan Prabhu. Just wanted to appreciate your class and the amount of preparation that went through for delivering such a nice class. I think it was very well prepared and you did a lot of research, and I really liked all the points that you made and how you led the discussion. And so thank you so much, Prabhu. In spite of your busy schedule, you came up with such a nice class. So thank you. And I really liked, as everyone else said also, that dissolving the subtle body is one of the biggest practical effects of bhakti, because when the Yamadutas come, it is said that they cannot move the soul because soul cannot be moved by anyone. But what they do is they pull the subtle body, and because the soul is attached to the subtle body, the soul also moves. And that is how the Yamadutas actually drag the soul. There's no other way. So if we are not attached to the subtle body, as Jagannath Gopal Prabhu mentioned, then the Yamadutas cannot even pull us, and we will directly go back to the spiritual world. So thank you, Prabhu, for bringing that point. And it's a very famous verse, and it's so interesting that this particular verse, 3:25:33, it's only 2 lines. So most of the verses in Srimad Bhagavatam is 4 lines, but this is one of those very rare verses because it's such a powerful verse. If you all look it up, it's only 2 lines. It's 3:25:33. So thank you for highlighting that verse, and I think that is like the jewel of this chapter. Thank you. Haribol.
Yes, thank you so much, Prabhu. Yes, once I saw this verse, I said, wow, this was, this, I had to end with this verse because it was such a powerful point that I think once you feel like, you get this, after that, nothing else is needed, Prabhu. But of course, this is, it's a realization that will take time, and we'll all gradually get there. So thank you. I want to thank everybody for patiently listening to the class and then participating in the discussions. And then maybe we can do Vanchakalpa. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnavendra ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
His Grace Krishnan Prabhu ki jai. Thank you, Prabhu.
Jai, jai, jai.
Haribol. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.